You know what's really fun is having backroom conversations behind the countdown timer that no one can hear except for the two of us, and just make us laugh as we are starting the show. Welcome to the VHS Club. You are hanging out with me, Katie, and my awesome best friend, Nat. Nat's like, hey. And I was joking that tonight Nat is Kim Basinger and I'm Russell Crowe. So we are hanging out here with you and with Tom and Louise hanging out in the chat. And we are here tonight to talk all about LA Confidential, which was a recommendation. We are now officially taking recommendations from our live studio audience. So huge props and shout out to Kimberly. I thought I had seen this one, and turns out I had not seen this one at all. So yeah, live and learn.
I have a literal memory of you and I sitting in the basement watching this movie on DVD.
Potentially I saw this one and just wiped it from my mind completely. Or someone that looks a lot like me watched this movie with Natalie and she had her mind wiped completely. Something crazy has happened here. I now officially, though, can say that I have now seen it. I watched half yesterday and I watched half tonight. I think I was much more focused tonight though than yesterday, so I'm really solid on the second half of this movie, which is probably fine because that's where all of the like real, grit of it all comes in.
There is a point. So this movie, for our listeners, just so you know, a quick recap: LA Confidential. It takes place in the I'm
50s?
not sure, the 1940s, 1950s.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
It's sort of I think it's the 50s. It's like the end of the era of the, the rough and tough LAPD cops, that got away with everything. Or they imply in the movie it's the end of that era, even though they're still in it. They're basically trying to end that era.
Yeah. They're going to solve police corruption in this movie, but also not at all.
not at all. That's one thing, rewatching it, I was like, we really have got nowhere since the 50s, but
yeah.
This is a movie. So it's a 1950s movie, or it takes place in the 1950s. The movie was made in the 90s.
Yep.
And it's a cop whodunit sort of murder mystery a la, Philip Marlowe kind of movie. So how did I put it before? I basically said two things. I said in my notes pretty early on, I was like, okay, so we know what's going to happen. We just got to watch this while they figure it out.
Absolutely.
While the characters figure it out. It's like, we all know, and the characters will figure it out. So we're just on this ride watching them.
Exactly, which is great for someone like me because I am the person who reads and watches almost exclusively like true crime and murder mystery stuff, and yet I never, ever, ever, ever guess it correctly or even try guessing. Like I am the person that's just like so caught up in what's happening that by the end I'm like, oh, I don't know who did it. and then I try to guess and I'm wrong every time. But this one I knew from the very start, so I feel really good about this. It's all good. There will be lots of spoilers, so if you have not seen this, time to turn it off. If you don't hit these spoilers.
There's two moments in the movie where I was like, oh, that was a nice like little shocker moment,
Yeah.
The second thing about this movie I had said, I'm like, it's basically, this movie boils down to two adult men having a very late onset coming of age moment.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a coming of age story for our friends Guy Pearce and Russell Crowe.
Yes. Their characters are Edmund Exley is Guy Pearce, and Russell Crowe is Bud White. They are both detectives in the homicide unit of the LAPD. We see quickly that Bud is of the old school where he goes and he, gets the job done. He plants evidence, breaks the knees, kills
Roughs
the
people
people that
up.
need to be killed to get justice, which
Yeah.
I say in quotations because it's, yeah, corruption is basically this whole movie is about how corruption built LA.
Yeah, this movie is like a really good indicator of all the things that I tell my kids all the time where I'm like, always trust the police people. And I'm like, maybe not in LA. Always trust the police people unless you are in LA, in which case, don't talk to the police people. Those are not good people.
So the movie opens with this voiceover from Danny DeVito, who is like a rag reporter. Like he's reporting on this sort of, I think the newspaper he's reporting for is called Hush Hush.
I know, which is fun fact, an actual publication. So there's like a few things in this movie that are
Yeah.
like actually happened. So the Christmas Eve riot, which is like at the beginning of this movie,
Yes.
and the
Bloody
publication
Christmas.
called Hush Hush, which I'm like, yeah. Now I want to get all the issues just for fun.
It would be pretty spectacular.
It would be.
So we have this sort of voiceover, and it's kind of like an advert for LA, like, come move to sunny California, to the wonderful, like, building up city of LA. And it's
Oh yeah.
kind of like that old school advert you got at the beginning of a movie. And I thought that was funny because it's actually kind of tongue in cheek, pointing out, like, corruption is how they got people to move out into the middle of the desert.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wild if you think about it. Like,
Yeah.
why is LA such a heavily populated city? And it's because they manufactured it to be
Yeah.
Hollywood, this magical land of opportunity where everybody can go there and become somebody. It's like, if you go there, you'll make it, kid. Kind of. So it opens with that sort of premise, but it also highlights the corruption immediately. I think Danny DeVito references the LAPD as the most, was it the most powerful police force in the world or the most effective police force in the world? And in my notes, I actually wrote, I'm like, well, historically, they have screwed up every serial killer case ever in LA. There's always been a delay in catching the serial killer because the LAPD screwed up somewhere.
Yeah.
Which this movie's not about serial killers. We just listen to too many true crime podcasts. So.
Yeah, it's true. And Doc is saying in the comments in our live studio audience that he just finished watching the Boston Strangler movie on Hulu, which has been on my like to watch since it hit Hulu. But yeah, the Boston Police Department does not win any awards for that one either. So I feel like the police department's just it's a lot of misses for a lot of these kinds of huge iconic cases. So they're too busy focused on corruption.
Yeah, it really highlights like they would pick the most likely suspect, and this movie implies that they always pick a person with a rap sheet that is most likely to have done it, and then they just prove, quote unquote, that they did it.
Yeah. Yeah, and they have like a pretty big list. Like I feel at one point in the movie they basically call out like all of the things that like cops should do, and none of them are things that anyone should do. It's like all of the like, planting evidence and beating the crap out of people, and like it really every line that no one should really be crossing. It's like, let's do this to get our man.
The chief of police, Chief Dudley, says to Guy Pearce's character Exley, he's like, you can't be a detective unless you can do the following corrupt things. And Dudley's like, no, I want to do it the right way. I want to investigate, find evidence, and use the truth. Which then, of course, we find out his version of corruption, because everybody in this movie is corrupt.
Yeah.
His version of corruption is political corruption. He basically uses his political prowess and his political intelligence to blackmail the police department into promoting him basically completely up the chain by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So we have three very polarizing police detectives. We have Bud, who is the rough and tough, go beat 'em up kind of detective who always gets the case solved.
Yep.
We have Exley, who is the new shiny out of the academy. I want to do everything, and I'll even rat on my fellow cops to get things done.
Yep.
And then we have Hollywood Jack Vincenzi, and he's the kind of cop that is paid. He's paid and bought for.
Yeah.
So it's like the hush hush newspaper is like, okay, we want to do a big Hollywood star drug bust. Can you come and, it's Christmas Eve, let's go and arrest these people and it'll be on the front page. And he's like, sure, give me $50.
Yeah.
So we have these three cops that just, that they don't get along, they will never get along, and they're set into this scene where there's a case of a woman that is found murdered and a fellow retired cop that Exley had thrown under the bus for
There's
a political career move.
A lot of people that were killed in that
Yeah, it was
yes,
like a
others.
diner massacre. A diner massacre. Yeah. So these three cops all pick up different threads of this case and start investigating it. And two of these cops, Vincenz and Exley, think that they're on separate cases. And it's really just Bud from the beginning that is piecing this together faster than everybody else and knows right off the bat that this whole thing is connected, and then it's connected to corruption.
Yeah. They're each coming. The cool thing I think about these three characters, none of them are entirely likable. Like they all kind of have their own personal sins, but they all have their own like very distinct moral compass as well, which I think is kind of interesting. Like you have Bud, who we find out grew up in a insanely abusive household, whose father was just a horrible, crazy, abusive person, and yet Bud, while trying to save every woman that when he couldn't save his mother, is still as abusive in many ways as his father was. Maybe, but he's got this, moral code that he is following all the way through, which is
he's saving all
these women.
He's saving abused women. Yeah.
Yeah, he's saving all these abused women. And then you have Exley, who is trying to kind of live up to this standard of what a police officer should be, what a detective should be, because his father was killed in the line of duty and they never caught the person that killed him, right? So there's this like trying to be his best and trying to kind of hunt down and find justice, whatever that means. But then
they call him the future of LAPD.
Right? Yeah, he's this like, slightly less corrupt, I guess, still corrupt, but slightly less corrupt than a lot of the other kind of old boys. And then you have Kevin Spacey's character, which was, interesting to see Kevin Spacey again after a long Kevin Spacey break for all of the obvious reasons. But Kevin Spacey's character, Hollywood Jack, he's probably has the kind of the least moral character out of the three of them. But you see in this interaction with sort of so you have all these characters are kind of these like femme fatale Hollywood like glam kind of characters on the side of the women, but then you have a homosexual male actor who is in this kind of horrible situation, and it's at that point where you see Kevin Spacey's character have this level of empathy, and I think kind of realizes how what he's doing can affect other people, and you sort of see that he's having like this feeling of deep morality of like what he could do, and that really in the end, like instead of being paid off, he wants to solve this one case that means something to him because he knew he was involved in.
Well, he realizes early on too. He starts seeing this common thread, the Fleur de Lis group. Like he starts seeing this, and you could see it sparks his genuine, like, his investigative interest at the beginning, and he kind of drops it because he doesn't really, nothing comes of it. He asks a few questions from his sources, doesn't get anything, but it keeps coming up. And then when he gets in this situation with I think it's the district attorney, they try to blackmail the district attorney by having this male actor seduce the district attorney.
Yeah.
And then this kid ends up getting killed, and that pushes him over the edge to like, okay, something needs to be done.
Yeah, it's
So
like the only
Exley ends
thing
up,
that he can't be bought with. Like it's interesting that
yeah,
he seems totally fine with everything else, but the conversation and the connection that he had with this kid who then ends up being killed is like enough to kind of snap him out of a strong focus on just doing what he can to get the buck to actually caring about where this case is going and wanting to be involved.
yeah. So in this, we come across this billionaire, Pearce, who Bud finds out right at the beginning of the movie, that he's running this illicit high-end escort / pornography ring, where he has these girls that come and are trying to make it big. He, seduces them into this world with the promise of keeping them safe and drug-free. But he does have them, if need be, modified surgically to look like Hollywood actresses. So we have a Veronica Lake, we have a Marilyn Monroe, etc. Which made me think of Judy Garland. She was a victim of this in real life. She had to have metal rings she had to wear in her nose to shape her nose ever since she was a little kid. True fact. That's super depressing. But yeah, like this was a real problem that was brought up in this movie, though not in the sense of prostitution, but
yeah.
So we see there's this prostitution ring, and again, as Bud is trying to figure out how does the corruption, the prostitution ring, the diner, like how does this all fit in together? And we have Exley and Vincennes that are also investigating in different venues. But nobody's sharing. What I found was amazing is nobody shared information with Bud, and he figured everything out on his own, and then realized nobody shared information with him, whereas the other two were working together for a while and shared information.
There's no one that anyone like it. This is a police department where it's every man for himself. Like the only reason why Hollywood Jack and excuse me, and Exley are working together is literally just because Exley is too green and like really just needs someone that's been there longer that can give him some kind of help throughout all of it, and has no one else that he can trust. And again, Hollywood Jack's the only one that can be bought off. So it's this kind of like, eye for an eye, like you help me with this, I'll help you with that kind of deal that brings them together. But in general, every single police officer in this entire force is entirely in it for themselves and could care less about who gets killed or hurt or fired or whatever on the other side of it. Yet they have this code where they won't turn on each other, which is kind of ironic. Like they're totally fine.
Except for Exley.
Yeah.
He turned on all of them. Like he sold them all off. So this cop that got killed in the diner massacre was forcibly retired early before his pension, because he was a sacrificial lamb for the department to clean up their image about how they don't protect the blue line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so conflicting watching this. And it's like, while watching it, I put it into historical context. Like, we're watching this movie, it takes place in the 50s. It's like saying some of this stuff now, I'm just like, oh, God.
I know, this is, right before we jumped on, I was like, I don't know, I gotta rate this one lower because it's really problematic, and it's like, it's really dated. Then I was like, but it is taking place in the 50s, so
yeah,
I mean,
it's supposed to, it's good for its epoch, like, it's a good representation of the era. It's just hard, like...
It's hard to watch.
It just sucks that nothing's changed.
It really does. It really does.
God. So anyway, these characters essentially I lost my thought. Lost the plot, Katie. I lost the plot.
I distracted you. Yeah, these characters end up having to work together, and really what ends up being uncovered is that it goes all the way to the top, and we unsurprisingly find out that Dudley, who I think, like, every time I hear the name Dudley, I feel like that should have been Exley's name, like Dudley Do-Right is like anyway, Dudley ends up being
his name was Edmund.
I know. I'm like,
not Edmund, but Edmund.
But yeah, Dudley, who is the chief of police, is like, in it up to his eyes with every possible level of corruption. And what I really enjoy about this movie is like, you find out that it is him, like, maybe a little bit more than halfway through the movie. But at that point, he just starts like aggressively killing off every single character. I was like,
he ties up all the
right.
loose ends by mass murdering.
Yeah, like
he's the serial killer the LAPD let get off for so long.
Yeah, so it's pretty shocking all the way through to the very end that he just all the characters are just gone. You're like, oh, all right, okay, we don't get attached to any of these characters, friends.
No, don't. Almost everybody dies. So 2 big twists. Vincennes goes to the chief of police saying, "Look, I found all this information." So Vincennes is like, "I can be paid off," kind of thing, but this case is bothering me. And the chief of police just shoots him dead.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, right, I forgot that happens. Like, but what's great is he says in his last breath, "Rollo Tomasi." Mm-hmm. And the chief doesn't know what that is, or who that is. So he goes up to Exley after and says, "Hey, I'm just tying up some loose ends on this solved case." Because, he was found not in my house, in my kitchen where I killed him, but in Echo Park. Killed by some random vagrants. So he's like, "Do you know what Rollo Tomasi? Do you know who that is?" And you could see that's when Exley's like, I know what happened.
I know who did it.
You.
Yeah. So what we learned earlier, but we skipped over in this summary, is that Exley and Hollywood Jack have this whole moment earlier in the movie before Hollywood Jack is killed, where they hear about Exley's father's murder, and Exley has made up this fictional name who is this like guy that got away, and that's who, that is become his like moral compass, who he is, why he's a cop, who he's going after. So no one else would have known that name. That's not a real person. So it is kind of cool in the end that, like, in his dying breath, with this very like, "Brilliant. I screwed you very over" smart look in his eye, he says that name, and that ends up being the thing that really is the undoing of this, ultimate bad guy throughout this movie.
I mean, it is from Exley's perspective, but Bud figured it out all on his own. Like, again, and Bud... So this whole movie, they're painting Bud to be the dumb cop that just throws fists, okay? Yeah. Like, that's... Though we do have some foreshadowing right at the beginning, because Exley's like, "Well, let's throw Bud under the bus and get him off the force." And Dudley's like, "No, he's a good cop. And not just because of that, he's actually really smart." And then we go throughout the whole movie where the viewer sees how smart Bud is.
Yeah.
Bud doesn't even see how smart he is. Mm-hmm. His Veronica Lake lookalike girlfriend tells him, like, "Hi, like, you're really smart. You figured all these things out on your own without any help from any of your fellow officers." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I guess," it's like everybody knows Bud is smart. So when he goes in to see the chief of police, and I forget what it was. What did the chief say to him? "We need to go to this motel to beat up this reporter from Danny DeVito from the Hush Hush." Yeah. And it was something in how he said it that he knew right away. He's like, "Oh, you're the guy. You're the bad guy who did this."
Yeah.
Very sadly, they earlier, to solve the case of the diner massacre, the chief points out that these 3 young African Americans are at fault, and yeah, and it's like, well, and it basically boiled down to, they had a rap sheet, they did do something bad, it was not at all related to the massacre, but the case was closed.
Yeah, racism. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so,
yeah. Again, this movie is painful to watch, especially if you are a good person living in 2023. This is an interesting point. Doc has a fun fact he's writing in. He says, when Guy trained for the movie, he was getting street training from the real LAPD and told the director that he no longer wanted to train with them because the cop he was working with was a racist. Yeah, right? Yeah. Like, still a problem. Still a problem today. Was a problem then. It's just really... But yeah, it takes a while. I will say this movie is like brilliantly layered in it, because even again... Mm-hmm. Though we know not that we're smarter than anyone else, but we, you know, pretty early on that it's going to be Dudley that is the like criminal mastermind, because the movie is so structured around this level of corruption, and he's the top cop,
high
right?
level of corruption. Yeah. Also, and I don't know if this was on purpose, but I'd like to say this very all-star cast, I would say, is dominantly not American. And the only person with an accent in this movie is Dudley. It's an Irish accent. Yeah. So my first thought is, well, that's sort of like the red herring that he's the bad guy.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Or am I just giving them too much credit?
You might be giving
I don't think I am. I don't think I am, because the movie was very well written.
I did read that that they actually purposefully chose both the so this movie is based on a book. There's actually a number of books that are in a series, and this is just one of the books in the series, but the author and the directorial and production team all agreed to not hire big names at all for both Exley and Bud's characters. They just wanted people who like wouldn't be a distraction, unknown, so that you wouldn't be biased towards how you viewed them, so that you wouldn't like be coming into this movie with like with our viewpoint, right? Where we're like, oh, it's Russell Crowe and Guy Pearce. We know them from everything else, but they hadn't been in hardly anything.
That's a specific thing to an American audience, because they were already famous before this movie was made. Like, they were famous outside of America before this.
They weren't really. Guy Pearce had been in
Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Yeah, which apparently the team behind this movie refused to watch because they didn't want to have a perception of him going into it. But yeah,
he's a phenomenal actor.
Both Australian actors, and both fairly unknown to a US market, and yes, still pretty 100%. Pretty early on in their careers. Whereas who we have not yet talked about, but you have obviously Danny DeVito and Kevin Spacey, both iconic, well-known actors at the time, and certainly past this time. And then you have Kim Basinger, who was, guys, Kim Basinger was only in this movie for a grand total of 15 minutes and took the Oscar for it. So we're not worthy of Kim Basinger, which is hilarious. Like, this is the only part of this movie that I remember. So whether or not I actually saw this movie beforehand, this movie came out the same year that Titanic came out. And so I remember, I was a diehard fan of the Oscars. So I at that time watched the Oscars religiously.
Let's just preface it. We were really young and very stupid.
Wanted to be part of the Oscar. Yeah, I really wanted to be an actor. I really wanted to be swept up in that. But I vividly remember Kim Basinger showing up for the Oscar and winning the Oscar, and just how fantastic and fabulous she is, and she looked, and she just exuded this beauty and confidence and just awesomeness, right? And then I just looked up tonight, and she was 43 when she made this movie, which is so
I honestly
awesome.
Thought she was 25 to 30. So Katie hit me with this insane fact that actually enraged me beyond reason. And Katie, I can't. You talk about it.
All right, hang on. I gotta read this quote. Maybe this is accurate, and maybe this is not. So no one come at me. I'm just reading, and I will drop this link into the show notes following this episode, so that you can all appreciate this. But all right, let me just scroll through. Of course, I should have had it prepped, and I didn't. But
I honestly thought she looked 25, but whatever.
So in the movie, both Bud White and Exley fall for the Veronica Lake lookalike, Lynn Bracken, played by Kim Basinger, right? So she's only in the movie for 15 total minutes, but she's a prostitute. She's out there looking like Veronica Lake, and but she's got this other side, and she's just this amazing character. She was 43 years old at the time of filming. She was apparently 10 or 11 years old. Natalie and I are fighting with this. 10 or 11 years older than Crowe and 14 years older than Pearce. And it says, this doesn't happen very often in Hollywood movies, though Elroy, the author of the book, said that he approved of the maternal aspect that the age difference brought to their characters' romance. And Natalie was like, what? Also,
But
no. Also,
first of all,
what?
I didn't get maternal vibes off of the high-end escort.
I know. Yeah, sorry. I'm using an inappropriate word. I apologize.
No, because she actually was a high-end escort in this. Like, she had like her clients were like senators and whatever. But
Yeah.
I'm being semantic. But this prostitute did not have any, like, she loved Bud. She very much fell in love with Bud, and Bud fell in love with her. And it was that whole like copper fell in love with the dame. You know, like it very Philip Marlowe, very Dashiell Hammett. It fits with this period. This author was obviously very inspired by Dashiell Hammett, like all the Philip Marlowe, like the Maltese Falcons, like those. Oh, yeah, for sure. You know, like, and which is great. It's fantastic. She did not. There was nothing in this movie gave me the impression that she was supposed to be significantly older than the two male leads. And the two like sort of love interests, like it didn't. I did not. That did not read to me. I'm so mad. I'm like, so they put in a woman to play a beautiful woman, and then they have to put it out there. Well, we hired her because she's matronly. What are you talking about?
Which is really like frustrating because it is incredible. You know, women certainly over the age of 40 have a really hard time, like, not playing, you know, the mother or even sometimes the grandmother in a lot of these films. Certainly back in the 90s, definitely continues today as an issue. And she not only looked much younger than 43, to be honest, but even if I believe that she was 43 in that movie, which I still don't entirely believe, I think she had a poise and a power and just like a confidence, both as the character and just as the actress exuding it, that it almost transcended her role in the film, which I mean, honestly, is probably why she won the Oscar that year. But
she played the classic femme fatale.
Yep.
But like what was amazing about her interpretation of it is you didn't know if she was part of the corruption or not.
You really didn't. Yeah, she was throughout the movie loyal. She was very loyal. So it was really hard to say. There was one
point where you knew she was forced to. So she's been dating Bud, and you know her boss, and everybody knows about this.
Yeah.
And Exley knows about this because he hates Bud, and this is before they team up to take down the corrupt Dudley, and. Exley, because even though he's supposed to be the smart guy, is the dumbest character in this movie because he gets fully sucked into this honey trap that was very obviously set up. When he goes to interrogate the billionaire, immediately after he goes to see her, and immediately she seduces him in a way that is going to seduce him.
Yeah.
And you could see, and that was the thing that I think won her the Oscars, you could see she knew. In this conversation, she even hinted at it. She's like, I know this is going to ruin my actual real relationship with this guy that I'm in love with.
Yeah.
So this also leads to the second, and I think the biggest shocker of the movie. So Dudley, we know, not Dudley, Bud, we know, is an abused child. His mother was abused. And he always saves women, and he always saves, especially women that are being beat on by their husbands, which is implied to be very common of the time.
It was very common at the time, yeah.
So when he confronts her with this, which he was presented with this, so the whole point of the setup of Exley and her seducing him is to rile up Bud so much that he's going to kill Exley. That's the point.
Yep.
He goes to her first, which shows an amazing level of self-control that we don't think that he has in this movie yet. And he gets so upset. And I kept like, and I did it when I first watched it. I did it when I watched it this week. I'm like, just tell him the truth that you had to do it because your boss made you. Tell him, you know, your boss is in league with the deadliest people in this city. I had to do it. She doesn't tell him that. She eggs him on in this like sense. And this is where you're like, she's the femme fatale, because you don't know, is she doing it on purpose?
Yeah.
Or she just didn't know how to express herself, how to communicate it. But she basically, he hits her, which to me was so shocking, because it's like his whole being, his whole raison d'etre growing up is to
save
not
the girl.
be
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
To never hit a woman, and then he smacks her twice. I was like, I was so shocked.
There were a lot of moments in this movie that were like, moments that were painful to watch, as we've said, but also moments that felt like they came out of nowhere. And like, yeah, that was definitely one of them. On the flip side, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, on the flip side, my all-time favorite moment is earlier in the movie where Exley realizes and figures out that there's, you know, this group of women who are all made out to look like actresses, and they, you know, and they're with all these men who have paid for their time, right? And so they're in a bar and they're trying to like interrogate this like sleazeball guy, and he's got this beautiful woman with him who's clearly like an actress, and she's gorgeous and whatever. And is
it supposed to be Loretta Young or something? It's supposed to be somebody who's like, I can't remember.
Doc will correct us. Doc will call it. Okay, I'm not going to say the actress's name because I don't remember which one it is. But yeah, they like. Exley just assumes that she is not the real actress, that she has just been paid to be there and paid to look that way and whatever else. And it turns out it actually is the real actress. She throws her water, you know, in his face and is like horribly offended. And
like, you're a really good lookalike prostitute.
Yeah. He just like straight up calls her a hooker. Like, he's just like all in for ruining everything. And this is our like, you know, good cop who like always does the right thing, quote unquote. So it was just an epic, shocking moment, but in the opposite way, where you're just like, what? And also for a moment I was like, but maybe she was. Like, for a moment I thought maybe she was, but I love it.
There's a line when she's seducing
Lana Turner.
Exley.
There you go. Doc came through for us.
Lana
Thank
Turner.
you, Doc.
Okay.
Lana Turner.
Where one of the things she does to rile Exley up and seduce him, she says, and it's such a great quote, she says to Exley about Bud, she's like, he said you're smart, he also said you're a coward and you would screw yourself to get ahead. Which I thought was a fantastic line. I love that.
Yeah, there were some really good lines throughout this entire movie. I watched it by myself over the last couple of days, but I kept saying, I was like, I'm probably gonna have to rewatch this with Dane, because I don't know if he's actually ever seen it either, and either way we should rewatch it, because it was really that good in that I've been so tired this week that I feel like having another rewatch where I can pay a little bit closer attention is probably a good call.
One thing that I thought was really funny in the movie that wasn't meant at all to be funny. So at the end of the movie, there's this big shootout, I think at this abandoned motel. Mm-hmm. And Dudley, the police chief, shoots Bud. Yeah. With the same gun and I looked it up because I'm like, is that the same gun? Because if it is, this is funny. And it is the same gun. The same gun that he kills Jack Vincennes with. And so Jack Vincennes gets shot in the chest. Bud gets shot in the chest. Yeah. Jack dies instantly. Yeah. Barely able to get out the words Rollo Tomasi. Yeah. Bud ends up being able to stab Dudley, save Exley. And then at the end of the movie, we find out he's alive. Which I'm like, this literally like blew Jack across the room.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not only was he shot, so he's shot in the chest and then falls and then stabs.
Shot again.
And then he stabs him. Yeah. Bud stabs Dudley, and then Dudley shoots him in the face. So like at that moment I was like, oh, he dies. And I was all so upset. Like in face, typical, and he's okay. Like, what?
Well, typical Hollywood, it wasn't a confirmed kill, right?
So that's true.
That's a rule. If it's not a confirmed kill on screen, he's still alive.
We're gonna throw back to our 90s horror flicks. You really need to kill people like 4 or 5 times.
If it's not confirmed on screen, he ain't dead.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
But I just thought it was funny. I'm like, also with the guns, there's a scene where the cops break in, and this also I think was a setup to corrupt Exley. The three perpetrators that were not in fact guilty of the diner massacre escaped from prison, which really, and it was set up for Exley to become the corrupt cop. So basically a gun show broke out and everybody gets killed, basically except for Exley, which was part luck and part reason to corrupt him. So it's like, I think Dudley would have been like, it works out either way. This kid is either dead or, corrupt at this point. Yeah. So he has a shotgun. Yeah. And I don't know anything about guns. I'm very Canadian. So I know nothing about guns.
I've done a lot of research.
So I have a question, and it's an honest question. So from across the apartment, he shoots this kid. The kid goes up, like off his feet into the air, vertically up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like, and then back out through a window. Is that even possible? Like,
I love that you're asking me this question. Like,
it's to the ether. You're also Canadian. I know you're like, you're dual, but like, no, we don't know.
Hey, live studio audience / listeners at home, if you understand this and this makes sense to you, leave us a comment here, drop a comment on the YouTube video, or email us, and you can find our email address in the show notes, and let us know. We'd love to know this. We'll have to do some additional research, but yeah, no, it felt a little bit. I mean, it was.
Well, it is the excess of that era of movie. Which I would like to say that Katie and I, especially when we were in high school, we were obsessed with these old movies. Like, we watched all the Nick and Noras, we watched all the Philip Marlowes. We were obsessed with these kind of movies.
Those I all
Which
remember.
Brings me to my next point.
Yeah.
The transatlantic accent, okay? There's a scene when Bud first meets Lynn. And he knocks on her door, and she's with her John, and they're reenacting this Philip Marlowe moment. I don't know if it's Philip Marlowe. Yeah, it's a PI kind of moment, but it's a Veronica Lake movie. They're acting out a Veronica Lake movie as their erotic play. Yeah. And in the clip, because they played an actual clip from an actual movie, you hear that sort of that PI talk, that sort of like gritty, talk that Bogart was best known for. And then you hear the transatlantic accent on the posh, dame. And that's the one thing this movie did not have. Yeah. Was they did not have like the, 1950s cop speak, and they did not have the transatlantic accent. Yeah. And every time I see movies that we make nowadays that take place then, they never do that.
I know.
And I find it so disappointing.
It is. It feels like it wouldn't be that hard for them to do. It's not like hard accent.
They had all these people from like half of the Commonwealth populated the characters of this movie. Yeah. So they're all speaking with an accent. Like, you have Irish, Australian, British, like all these people in this movie. And they're all, so they have voice coaches. So why it's so good. I think we should bring it back anyways.
We should bring it back anyways. TikTok's starting to revive it, which makes me really happy. We just been
the kids are doing it right.
This just in from Doc. Doc says that the gun scene is possible but not likely.
Oh, thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc. We appreciate that. The one thing I will say about that whole like final shootout gun scene is that it was just really fun to watch. And I'm not normally like a big, like, I don't really love like shoot 'em up movies in general unless they're fun to watch. In which case, you have him like. You have Bud, like, they're like pulling things down and like shooting. And there's a lot of like, there's a ton of just like and beautiful emotion to this. Like, it's almost like a
dark.
dance.
There's rape. Yeah. It was very well done. This movie really, was really phenomenally done, phenomenally acted on all parts. And, okay. So Exley, and this is something I noticed, and I really had to like pause the movie and think about it for a while because I'm crazy. You hate his character, which just goes to show how much of a good actor Guy Pearce is. You
Yeah.
hate him from the beginning of the movie. You want to punch him in the face constantly. You want to kick your screen in because he's so hard to watch, because he's so ick. He just gives you the ick. And I was like, but what is he doing specifically that is giving me the ick? And do you know what it is?
What is it?
He doesn't blink. He doesn't blink.
He's giving serial killer vibes, is that what you're saying?
No, literally, he does not blink on screen, except for when he got the drink thrown in his face.
Oh,
But he was wearing
that
glasses.
Yeah.
But he literally doesn't blink
That would
when
be
he
hard.
is speaking to a single character in this movie. I don't think he blinks other than getting the drink thrown in his face.
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
That's amazing. And I feel like that is something that Guy Pearce would actually do.
Yeah, I believe that.
Like, I feel like that was his choice. And that, oh my God, it was incredible. But I'm like, it really, like, it unnerves you when people don't blink at you. Like, we blink like every half second, you know?
Oh my gosh. All right, hey, well, let's shoot into some fun facts, because there's a bunch of
Yes.
them. All right. So, let me pull this up while I'm doing that. Doc says that it's not the force of the shot that feats people, it's the nervous system going into rapid shock.
Ah.
Which actually, I mean, that makes sense.
See, you know what? I get the medical stuff. You tell me about, like, the biology and the, yeah, I get that. I understand.
Oh my gosh. All right. So, okay. So we already mentioned that the Christmas Eve police riot at the beginning and the gossip magazine called Hush Hush were actually things that happened, real life things.
Amazing.
Also, Lena Turner. Did I say that right? Lena, not Lana.
Lana Turner.
Every time. Lana Turner really did have a romance with mobster Johnny Stompanato. I'm just going to butcher all these names.
Stompanato sounds right.
Not mentioned in the movie, but included in the novel, is that Stompanato was abusive towards Turner, and that in 1958, Turner's teenage daughter, Cheryl Crane, stabbed him to death, claiming that he was assaulting her mother. Yeah. So
I'm pretty sure I heard a true crime podcast.
I was going to say it was one of the biggest Hollywood scandals of the 1950s.
Yeah.
And again, we will. These are, I am directly reading from MoviePhone.com. I will drop this source into the show notes afterwards, so don't come at me, MoviePhone. Elroy. So we mentioned that this is based on a series of novels. There are 4 novels in total. They're referred to as the LA Quartet series. And so hilariously, the author, Elroy, sold the novel to be made into a film entirely for the money. He said that he never thought that they would turn his 500-page book into a movie. So he just didn't think that. He was like, sure, I'll take the money. Good luck to you. See you later. And so he was actually kind of shocked that it worked out. Hey, Kimberly is here. Kimberly recommended this movie to us. Kimberly, hey, here, we're going to give you a round of applause. We really enjoyed rewatching this one. Natalie rewatched it. I may or may not have seen it before, but it felt like watching it for the first time. So it's been a lot of fun. We're going through some fun facts. I think we already covered most of these ones. I'm scrolling through. I'm less organized this time than I normally am. All right. So yeah, we talked about the fact that this movie came out the same year as Titanic, which we all know is one A, we should cover, and B, won all the things. So it was nominated for a total of 9 Oscars, but it only took 2, Best Supporting Actress and Best Adapted Screenplay, which I think those were the 2 it should have taken, honestly, but it lost in all of the other categories, specifically to Titanic. So that is why. Had it not come out that same year, it could have done better, but I mean, badass Kim Basinger,
I thought
15 minutes and she took it for the 138 minutes in the movie. 15 minutes this woman was on screen and they were like, here you go, you're the best.
She did it though. She earned it. That's for sure.
She did it.
I have to say, the set, the costuming, the everything, the lighting, the way they filmed it was spot on.
Yeah.
I mean, if they had done it in black and white and had the accents, it could have been made then.
Yeah, I think that probably would have been the only 2 things that I would have changed as well. But again, you and I are the kind of people who, like, we're not afraid of a black and white movie. We're not afraid of subtitles. Like, we're not kind of the traditional American. We A, are not traditional Americans, and B, are not traditional American audiences. That wouldn't be as big a. I wonder if it would have done as well had they added those 2 things in.
No, oh yeah, that was one thing. So the Irish chief of police had an Irish accent.
Hmm.
Seems obvious. And you know, a corrupt Irish cop seems like a very common um
Trope.
plot
Yeah.
line
Hmm.
in, yeah, it's a common trope in these movies. Um is that like an acceptable accent to have in an American movie? Is Irish, is that the only acceptable accent to have
I
in
don't know,
an
and
American movie?
I can't, and of course, I don't have it in front of me, but I can't remember that actor's name. But I feel like he either is Irish or he
He
certainly
is,
is.
yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say he's played an Irish
Irish or
character
Canadian.
in a lot of movies.
I
So
mean, he's Irish either way.
yeah, yeah. Oh, James Cromwell.
James
Yeah,
Cromwell, yeah.
there you go. Thanks, Kimberly.
And yes,
We're
and
done.
Kevin, and I have to say, watching this,
Kevin
and we all hate
Spacey.
Kevin Spacey. Flat out, we
Yeah.
all hate him. He's
Kevin
a horrible
Spacey is
son
a
of a human being.
garbage person and a fantastic actor, and it's really,
God,
really
he's
upsetting.
so good.
Because he's
watching this, I'm like,
yeah.
oh my God, he's so good. The subtleties, the subtlety in his expression, his movements, his like, shit, that man was good at his job.
I know, it's upsetting. I'm
Terrible human
very
being.
angry at him for being a garbage person and denying us the ability to watch his films in addition
Yeah.
to just every horrible thing that he has done / is
Yeah,
accused of.
absolutely.
But he is and was phenomenal to watch in this film, which is just a huge bummer. So we're on public record saying that we think he's a fantastic actor and a garbage human being. So,
Well, I just
there
looked
you
up
go.
James Cromwell,
Okay.
and he's an American actor.
Okay.
I
Well, he
only
plays-
ever know him with an Irish accent.
I was gonna
but
say he plays an Irish person in a lot of movies. So
he was born in LA.
Oh,
Well,
there you
good
go.
for him.
Good for you, James Cromwell. Good for you.
James Cromwell, you are the only actor who's allowed to have an accent in an American film, and
Yeah.
I applaud you.
Yeah, Doc is live fact checking. It's really important to have live fact checkers. So if you are really good at facts and want to hang out with us, you can join Doc in this live studio audience to be like, that wasn't true, Katie and Nat, mostly Katie. That wasn't at all true. Yeah.
And yeah, like, yes, we all know that a lot of Irish mobsters were police.
True.
I you know, that, yeah, that's history.
Very true.
I mean, Katie, you're in Boston.
No comment. No comment at all.
I'm in Montreal, and I have to say that we're kind of the city that we often refer to as, like, we have one of all of them. Like, we have one of each.
Speaking
mobs,
of corruption, Montreal.
Like, one of each
really
mobs. Like, we have every mob representation in Montreal, like, from around the world.
Yep.
So, yeah, they all have their own thing.
Yeah.
So,
This is the city of corruption.
you know, they're in their separate corners. You know, there's not a lot of turf wars, though there is an interesting Netflix special that you guys should watch if you want to know about some mob family stuff that went down in Montreal recently. And then just before the pandemic, there was this crazy mob boss hit that went out in Montreal. And it's like the head of every mob ended up dead one way or the other. So now we have no idea what's going on or who orchestrated that.
Mm-hmm. And we're not going to
So
talk
yeah,
about that
we
at
know
all.
the corrupt thing.
Yeah,
we know the corrupt thing here.
to be clear, we're totally neutral on that situation.
I don't know anything about it. Just, you know, what I saw
Oh
my
my gosh.
in the news.
Well, we did it. We made it all the way through a 138-minute film with 15 minutes of incredible Kim Basinger and just some phenomenal scenes from start to finish. So this is really unfair, Kimberly, and everyone else who's recommended movies to us, because I feel like we have an unbalanced review system, because without too much spoilers, all of the movies that we've done so far have been like 4 or 5. Like, and the ones that we rated less than 5, we were kind of like, maybe we should, just because we've rated all the other ones 5. We need to like watch a really garbage movie next so we can really feel very like a level playing field.
Gotta be careful, because there's some garbage movies out there that I love.
I know, that's the problem. Like, even if you suggest a garbage movie from the 90s, we're probably still gonna like it. Yeah. What was one of our friends, shout out to Will, who is incredible, suggested that we watch Critters. I think it was Critters. Isn't that what he said, Nat? I can't remember. I sent it over to you. I think it was Critters he suggested we watch.
I think so. I had a guinea pig named Gizmo.
Yeah, right? And he suggested that that was like a garbage movie, but I think we would like it. So it's really, I don't know if it would work out. But here we go. Are you ready? Are you ready for
Yes.
the potato review? Ironic since we've been talking about people from Ireland, but here we go. Ready for the potato review?
Awful, Katie.
There we go. Up here. 3+2. So it's somewhere between 3 and 5, probably 5, because this was a really incredible movie.
It's what threw me was rewatching it, the accents. Look, if you're going to make a period piece, do the damn thing. Just do your job. Just do it. I'm sorry, America, to remind you that you had the transatlantic accent. Not everybody, and let's be honest, it was a purposeful thing that a certain social class did, and it was always presented in Hollywood as that. All the Hollywood film stars used it. Yeah. So if you're making a movie about Hollywood film stars in the time period, do it correctly.
I would like to have all of the glam from that era and that part of the world without any of the corruption. That's my vote from this experience. It just Tom suggested we want a really garbage movie. We should watch Garbage Pail Kids. I actually like that one though, Tom.
I used to collect the Garbage Pail Kid they came like the cards, the baseball cards. They came with the gum in the pack. I have and the stickers. I probably will like it.
Yeah, this podcast should really be called Katie and Natalie basically everything from the 90s. So maybe we should start watching movies from today where we're like, but why though? Why this?
Yeah, don't get me started on Kenneth Branagh trying to do Poirot dirty.
Yeah.
Oh, I have an issue.
When did the Kenneth Branagh Hamlet come out? Because I both love and hate that one. So maybe
I love that. I think Kenneth Branagh let me down when he cheated on Emma Thompson.
Kenneth Branagh let everyone down when he cheated on Emma Thompson. Let's just be real for
Well, she did better out of it.
I'm still angry.
No offense, Kenneth. He is a good filmmaker. I think that movie-wise, work-wise, what disappointed me first with him was Frankenstein. Is that a 90s movie?
Maybe that's a 90s movie that we'll hate. It might be.
Because I rage against that movie. A stone castle goes up in flames. It's made out of stone.
Oh, see, the problem is that there's so many Frankenstein movies. Hang on, we got to say, I'm looking at what Frankenstein movie, and Google's like, but which one though?
Kenneth Branagh.
1994. We could watch that one.
There we go. We could do that.
There you go. If you're looking for us to really rage against a movie, that might be our next.
If you want to call me a mean girl, a Heather, we can watch Frankenstein.
Oh, Heather's. But there's so many fun movies that I really want to see more.
Yeah, let's do fun movies.
Okay.
Let's do fun movies.
So if you guys ride with us, we're going to watch only movies that we give
Hamlet 96. Katie, Hamlet's 96.
That movie defined my love for Hamlet. And true story, I had that entire play entirely memorized and used it to get myself out of getting in trouble at school. And my dad still talks about it as being one of my iconic moments. It's like, remember that time when you showed up your teacher by quoting the entire first act of Hamlet? Sure do. Sure do, Dad. Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, so... Yeah, what are we going to do next? We're taking a break next week.
We are
likely?
Off next week because Scarlett, my daughter, my adorable 8-year-old daughter, is hitting the stage. She's going to be a card and a flower in a production of Alice in Wonderland. So I can't make it work to be on without letting her down. So we're going to take a break. Oh, Doc, is there a 95 Othello? Also fantastic.
Yeah, okay, I'm just going to preface, the 90s in Shakespeare on film were fantastic. There's this whole, that, I forget what it was called, but they purposely filmed, so they set it to film, but it was on stage. They did a whole series in the 90s. Ian McKellen was in a lot of them. They were awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, God, Ian McKellen as Iago in Othello.
Okay, so we're gonna take a break next week because we obviously have a lot of decisions to make. So maybe because we are doing, we have 2 weeks until the next episode. Maybe we do Hamlet and Othello. Just saying. Like, maybe we go all in.
We could do like a little mini series. Ooh.
We could do a mini series.
We'll see. We'll figure it out. It'll be a surprise, guys, because
Yeah.
we're not sure we have too many ideas.
Yeah. But we made it through episode 7. So we're past episode 7. So we're through Pod Fade and we're still here.
Yeah.
Some of you are still here with us. So yeah, we're really excited to be here. And we'll catch you not next week, but the week after. And maybe we'll drop some fun top 10 lists and things in between, because that's been fun to make. And we could certainly do that in the in-between.
And I also just want to give a special shout out to my wonderful sister-in-law, Emma, because it's her birthday today. So happy birthday, Emma.
We're going to do, yay! And then yay! Happy birthday to Emma. Maybe we'll have to ask Emma what her favorite 90s movie is, and we can add that one to the list as well. She's like a baby though, so she doesn't have she might not have a favorite 90s movie. She's not old like us.
No, she does. I have a few that she had suggested one for Valentine's Day that I'm like, that would be a good one. Anyway, we'll discuss.
All right, in honor of Emma's birthday. It just makes me want to watch some version of Emma, but the 90s Emma was like not as good. So there's another one that might be
the worst one.
It's the worst one. It's definitely the worst one. Yeah. Well, thank you for wasting another perfectly good hour with all of us. It has been super fun, and it was great to watch LA Confidential again. I watched for the first time. I really enjoyed it. It was like everything that I was looking for in a movie. So awesome!
I love a whodunit, and I love a copper movie. So good.
Fantastic. Well, Nat, I will talk to you before then, but for everyone else, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Be sure that you like and subscribe and review and do all of the good things. As you know, this podcast is live streamed every single week, sometimes every other week, on YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern. So you can join our live studio audience by just hanging out in the comments with some of the coolest people I know. If you can't catch us live, or you're like, I don't do that live streaming thing, no big deal. You can catch the replay video anytime on YouTube. Our channel is just at the VHS Club. I think no pod in the end, at the VHS Club. And if you are more of a listener than a viewer, that's okay. No big deal. Watch the movies, listen to us on your favorite podcast player. We are available on all of them. Episodes drop usually Friday morning, sometimes even Thursday night if I'm feeling real adventurous. So listen there. Make sure that you subscribe and like and share and review and recommend, because that helps us get the word out. And we don't have huge goals for this podcast other than have fun, which we're succeeding at. But yeah it's fun to have some listeners and hang out and get your opinions and your movie recommendations. So definitely send those along. But until
and just to clarify, this is not moonshine. It's just water. I just drink a lot of water. It's just water.
My cup's empty, not just water, gin, but empty. So really enjoying the gin tonight. Tom is in for a double feature, so maybe we'll have to do that just for Tom. We appreciate you, Tom, and Doc, and Luis, and Kimberly for this week's awesome movie recommendation, and everyone else hanging out in our live studio audience. It's always more fun with people hanging out live with us. Thanks, Nat.
It really
Thanks for, as usual, watching the movie and taking all of the notes and letting me come along for the ride.
You're welcome.
We will see you all next time.